Welcome to the Coach Johnny Mac Show. We have a real good guest this week, a journeyman of journeymen, David Ling. Played all over the place. We're going to get into David's career, but first, I just want to mention that the hockey world hearts are heavy today. Toronto Maple Leaf prospect, first round pick, 15th overall, Rodion Amirov passed away today of cancer, and just all the best and thoughts and prayers to his family and friends and the entire Maple Leaf organization. So we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that here before we get into the interview. Perfect. So Dave, welcome. Thank you. We're on the same time zone here. You're PEI, I'm in Halifax, and I appreciate you coming out and taking some time tonight to talk about your journey.
Yeah, no, I enjoy reflecting back and telling some stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just kind of walking through your career. We just mentioned off the air. So you were born in Halifax and moved over to the island when you were 5. So where did you move to on the island? Where were you kind of located in?
Yeah, my dad was an orthopedic surgeon, so we moved over, and I was right in Charlottetown where the main hospital was. So I grew up in Charlottetown.
Okay, so Dr. Harry Callahan, you remember him?
Yeah, he was one of my dad's good buddies, and I knew his daughters.
Yeah, I knew his daughters as well, and I got hurt when I was over there playing. I think in the Spud. Remember the Spud tournament? And I think it was in midget, and I got hurt. He was around the rink, and
one of the granddaughters played at UPEI with the hockey team.
Really? Isn't that funny? I mean, I haven't seen any of that family in probably upwards of 40 years. Forget about the 30-year stuff. But awesome, and Charlottetown and the hockey on PEI and the tradition of it. How was it as a kid, kind of growing up and going to those rinks?
Well, they have quite a few teams now in the minor hockey system. We only had 2 or 3, so we were always gone, either hosting a tournament or off island in a tournament. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So you go through, and then how old were you the year you played with the Abbeys, 89, 90?
14.
Yeah, I was gonna say because I got you by 6 years, and 89, 90, I was like, he must have been young there. Forby Kennedy, I assume, was the coach still.
Yeah, my brother was 2 years older, and he was trying out, and I just Forby asked me to go on for ice and basically made the team just by being out there. It wasn't intentional. I didn't go out to try out, but they couldn't push me away.
Yeah, and that was Forby was legendary. He would have a couple of guys there to protect you. I'm thinking
I remember my first 4 games in '89, we had bench clearing brawls.
Really? Was it over here in Halifax?
No, they were all in PEI.
Yeah, against Summerside, I would assume would have been.
Yeah, one was against Moncton. They were a new team. Or might have been Riverview.
Yeah. And
Halifax was one, and then the other team on the island here.
Yeah. Jim Bottomley would have been coaching Halifax then, and I'm sure. So I coached for him a little bit last year. He owns a junior B team here in Nova Scotia. Liverpool just moved to Bridgewater, and Jimbo's still involved, and he's as intense as
they hosted the Atlantics, didn't they, last year?
They did, correct. Yeah, they did, and lost in the semis. But he's still kicking around and as fiery as he ever was. I think he's near 70 now. Cool. So you play your 14-year with the Abbeys, and then after that, so you had a guy there. Then we talk about hockey being such a small sort of network and family. There was a guy, and he was from PEI with the Abbeys as a 20-year-old that year, Monty Emery, goaltender. Well, yep. I played with Monty. He had a short stint with the Toronto Marlboros in 87, 88, and I was on that team. So they're you can kind of see.
Yeah, small. I think he's a police officer in Truro.
Is he really? Wow.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, he was a goaltender there. So you go to St. Mike's, and I actually played in that league. I played, and you would have played them, and they were real good then, the Wexford Raiders.
Yeah, they were the popular team.
Yeah. So I played for Wexford, and so you played with Brett Lindros on St. Mike's. I played against Eric Lindros when he played for St. Mike's. He was 14 then, and I was 18 with Wexford. So it's just kind of,
Me and Brett both got drafted to Kingston too. He was with me in Kingston as well.
I saw that, yeah, and I mean, that junior, it was Junior B. They called it the Metro Toronto Junior B League, and I remember coming back here. I went up there and played one year, and I came back and they're you played Junior B. Yeah, that's no joke, Junior B. That was real good hockey. I think
there was a bunch. I think there was a lot of players were going NCAA out of there. It was like it wasn't Junior B, but they called it Junior B.
Yeah, I mean that any of one of those teams, you take the top, Henry Carr, St. Mike's, Wexford, Kingston, those teams could have came down here and competed in the Maritime League quite easily, right? I
remember it. I remember I was playing there, and Eric came home from the World Championships and couldn't stop complaining about Gretzky. It was kind of surreal for a little guy from PEI, and Lindros is coming in and abusing, kind of bad mouthing Gretzky.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I mean, just being around that family for sure. And then Kingston, must have been a great place to play. Real good hockey town, huh?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think I compare it to Halifax. It's a school town with a little bit of local flair to it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, oh, for sure. So I get confused here kind of going through. You get drafted by Quebec, right? And then you end up in
Calgary.
St. John. Yeah. Did you get traded or was it not signed?
I didn't get signed. So the 2 years you go back in the draft, and I signed a week before the 2 years was up, just to get it out of the way.
With Calgary?
Yeah, with Calgary.
So you went with Calgary, and then of course then you end up in St. John, and that was a relatively new franchise then, if I remember correctly.
It wasn't brand new, but it was like single digits for sure.
Yeah, cool. And they used to pack that place, the Harbor Station, just down there on the train tracks.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was close enough to come home whenever you needed to, and it was good.
Right. Yeah. So you're there. You're in St. John, and what brings you to Montreal? How do you get called up to Montreal from a Calgary?
No, I get traded to. So I get traded for Scott Fraser. I got traded from Calgary to Montreal and went down the highway to Fredericton, and then got called up from there.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I mean they're an hour apart, those two, and they were pretty bitter rivals at that time as well. Jerry, I noticed that Jerry Fleming was with you and Freddie. There was a big man that wasn't afraid.
Yeah, and I knew him from before. He played at UPEI when I was a kid. Yep. And I remember he lived near my dad, and I knew him from there, and then we ended up playing together. And he's a big man. He looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, he was huge. Do you remember a guy that played for UPEI as a kid? And he's a little older than me, so you may not, but he had the CIS record for goals. Richard Little. Do you remember Richard?
Richard's still here. I see him a little bit. He still lives in PEI.
Does he? I played with him briefly in Norway. So
yeah, he played in Norway.
Yeah, played in Stavanger. So but real good hands, that guy. And then he went to England. I went to England the next year, and then he went to England the year after I left or something. But we kind of followed each other around a little bit. So you get called up to the Habs. Let's talk about that. You're a Canadian kid. That's what you watched on Saturday nights. It was either Toronto or Montreal out here. We didn't have any other choice. Were you a Toronto or a Montreal guy?
Well, my dad and my grandfather were Toronto guys.
Yeah.
And I wore 17 because of Gerard Gallant, and he was in Detroit. So I was a Gerard Gallant, Steve Yzerman, Bob Probert fan. And now I'm kind of back to being an adopted Leaf fan.
Are you? Yeah. Well, you played in the organization too.
I lived in Ontario, and you hear about the team so much that it almost grows on you. And I like watching their top guys. But it was Saturday night, hockey night in Canada against the Bruins.
Wow.
It was surreal.
Yeah. Just you kind of numb that day,
I remember morning skate. I couldn't make a pass. I couldn't pick up a pass. I was so nervous. I couldn't think. And it was surreal. It was something that, You never forget, though. I went on the ice for warm up. We didn't do that rookie skate though, but thank God. But yeah, it was something.
Yeah, well, I can, and that's a question I ask, most, if not all of my guests, certainly the ones that played in the AHL, and it's the same thing. They're like, I don't even kind of remember the warm up. I remember, trying to make a pass and it's 10 feet behind the guy, and I'm just kind of looking at the stands, and they're not even full, right? It's not like you go into a warm up and there's 20,000 people screaming, but just to look up and.
How many times we played Hockey Night in Canada as a kid on the street? It was like. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, and all of us that never got that opportunity are certainly envious.
That picture over my shoulder, I'm hitting Ray Bork. That was that night. It was in the Gazette the next day.
Oh wow, yeah, wow, I can see it there. That's awesome. So then you're kind of up and down. You end up in Indy for a bit. You end up. Did you start in Indy or start in Freddie 97, 98?
I started in Freddie. Chicago came in looking for Brad Brown.
Yeah.
And they were in town, and I ended up beating. I think I remember beating Kevin Kamensky twice in a fight.
Did you?
Yeah. And they didn't trade for Brown, but I was gone. I was gone Monday. They traded. I remember Martin Gendron, a French guy, went back to Montreal. I went to Chicago.
Yeah, Kevin's a very good friend of mine. He's been on the show. And
he was tough.
He's Energizer Bunny, right? He's gonna keep coming at you. But you know what? Off the ice, you could not meet a nicer, kinder gentleman, right?
Real genuine. Yeah, he was great.
Yeah, just a beauty. He's out in northern Saskatchewan.
All us little guys got along off the ice.
Oh, for sure. So then, so you're in Indy. Was Cam Russell around then, or he was in the NHL? He would have been with
Chicago. He was in Chicago at that time, I think.
Yeah.
But you know who was coaching us? Bob Murray and Cassidy might have been assistant coach.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So then KC in the I played 2 full seasons there, big numbers.
My coach there was Paul McLean. He was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. He ended up in Ottawa, right? But, after that.
He's from Antigonish.
Yes. Yeah. Some good coaches came out of there. Brof. I remember Brof. I used to caddy for Brof at Brightwood in Dartmouth, and golf course in Dartmouth here, when he was coaching the V's in the early 80s. And I'll tell you true stories about running from like number 16 green to the clubhouse to get Brof a new putter because he missed a 4-footer and just snapped it right over his knee. And I'd be coming up, huffing and puffing over a big hill to the clubhouse, and the pro would come out. He'd know because I was kind of Brof. He'd come out with a putter and hand it to me. Oh, what number was he on when he broke it? 16 green, and then I'd have to, hike it back. But Brof was good because you'd get most of the guys back then. If you'd caddy 18 holes, it was $5, and they'd get you a hot dog after 9. Brof would give you 10, and he'd give you a hot dog after 9, and then a burger and fries after 18. So it was like you hit the jackpot, right, back then.
Yeah, I was fortunate. I got to meet him too. He was an icon.
Yeah. Oh, some of the. I watched a video the other day of him when he was coaching Toronto, and he was trying to teach somebody how to move somebody in front of the net, and he's just two-handing the guy with a Sherwood, just giving it to him. He lasted.
Well, there was definitely. Even when I started, there was different tactics than you can do now to get you in front of the net.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember the refs going, three more, you're getting a penalty. 3 more.
Yeah, exactly. And so Utah. This is interesting to me because you played there in 2000, 2001, and the Olympics were going to be there the next year. Did you guys play in that Olympic rink, or did you?
And it was, and they were set up for the Olympics. It was awesome. There was like a great facility.
Yeah, and then because the 02 Olympics went there the year. I wonder if you guys had played there, and then you kind of you end up in. So with Utah, was that they were usually the Islanders, weren't they?
They were Dallas that year, but you know who was coaching me? That you said Islanders. Bob Bourne was the coach.
Okay,
and. Bob Gainey was around all the time because he was a GM in Dallas at the time.
Right.
He's one of the few that he hated me.
Yeah.
And I was on the team.
Yeah. Wow. Who else here? So then you end up in Columbus. So Columbus came into the league, right? Not long before you went there, right?
Yeah, and there was a PEI connection there with Doug McLean, Jimmy Clark, and Turk was assistant coach at the time. Jim Rankin was the travel PR guy.
Right.
George Matthews was the radio guy. Like there was a lot of Summerside. So I'm sure I got a little bit of a special treatment.
Well, you know what?
That's what you need.
I remember sitting with Dougie at the Prospects game the year, the 86 birth year. So it was Rob Schremp, Dave Boland, that kind of crew. And Schrempy came in I had him on my show a while back, and we talked about this. He came in the game, in the Prospects game, and did the, scoop up the puck and went behind his head and kind of flung it around here, and it went crossbar and up into the mesh, kind of right where we were. And McLean was like, "What is going on? How did that guy just do that?" But he's been a great ambassador for the sport. Just what he did in the game from a coaching and management perspective. To his presence in the media was always honest, and he told
and I think that's why he was so good. He didn't care, and he was honest, but his point of view was usually right.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, he's paid his dues and he's been around forever. No, that's awesome. So you get up with Columbus. You play in Syracuse. Was John Morassi in Syracuse with you? I should have looked.
He was there later.
Was he? Okay.
I played against him later on after the lockout. Went back and played against him.
Yeah, he's a buddy as well. He's a little bit of a snap show too. That guy. He's got some stories. He's got some stories from the KHL that I was up, spent a day with him up at the community that lives in northern Saskatchewan. Some of the KHL stuff, and I want to get into that with you here as we get there. But so you get up with Columbus. That must have been cool to get back after you have a little sniff and then you're grinding and then you get, a lot of guys don't, right? They get that sniff and it's tough to ever see it again. I had Bill Armstrong, so he's the guy that first. Did you play? Not Bill, that's a Phoenix GM. I played with him. This other Bill,
played against him when he was in Providence. Bill.
Yeah, that Bill. Yeah, but there's another Bill Armstrong that played in the Philly organization. And he was the originator of the Michigan. So I had him on last week, and he did the Michigan 8 times and 4 in the American League.
I thought Mike Legg was the original one.
No, Mike Legg was playing for Michigan, and he watched Billy the night before playing for, I want to say, Grand Rapids in the A or the I. And Billy did this 8 times. Mike Legg actually, in his interview after the Michigan game when he did it, gives Bill Armstrong credit.
I think, now that it say that, I do remember that, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Armstrong. So there's 2 Bill Armstrongs, and they actually played together. So these guys played together in Lehigh or somewhere in the Hershey. It was Hershey, and they called the big Bill Billy D because he was a defenseman. They called this Bill Billy F. So it was a great interview.
And Big Bill was big.
Oh, I played with him. And he was a 16-year-old in Toronto, and massive. Not big hands on him, but he was like a teddy bear, right? I think if he had a mean bone in his body, he'd probably be in the Hall, be like Chris Pronger, right? He was that big, and
I think his partner that year was Dean Chenoweth, and he had a little bit of edge to him, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So you're in Columbus, and here's another 6 degrees of separation. So I played against a guy in Norway in early '90s, and you played with him in Columbus, Espen Knudsen, and he was the Gretzky of the Norwegian League when I was over there.
And he was such a genuine good guy. He was awesome.
Yeah, and then he hit the young girl with the puck. Obviously, a freak accident that there was no culpability whatsoever. I heard just from some of my friends in Norway that really affected him and kind of.
Yeah, it did. It changed him. Like he really felt it, and like it would.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I remember my first game over in the Norwegian League, and I played for Furuset, which is another team in Oslo, and he played for Vålerengen, which was the big kind of home club in Oslo, and we played them at the Oslo Spectrum, and he blonde hair flying out the back of his helmet, and he was the Gretzky over there. He was.
I think he's the GM in Oslo now.
Is he? Oh wow.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but great player, and
he was gentle. It was amazing that he played when he did because he was so gentle, but he's so skilled.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I was a little shocked. I'm not going to lie to you because I can remember muscling him around a little bit over there. We were able to, some of the bigger imports. We kind of, that was the game plan, right?
Well, he wouldn't have weighed 160 pounds.
No, not even. And yeah, so we were always told to give him that extra little shot after the whistle or face wash or whatever, right? Because he, what's he going to do? And so when he came over here, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but he put up some good numbers. Good player. Then you end up in St. John's. So was that a transaction or was that a free agent thing in 04? Because that was lockout, right around the lockout, right?
Yeah, it was the lockout, and I knew I wasn't getting back to the NHL, but the lockout, it was, I don't know if I went to them or they came to me. Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah. So you end up in St. John's, play a full season there again. 88 points in 152 minutes. They would have loved you over there. Was Andrew McKim around then?
No, he was done by then, but I did play against him when he was in Adirondack.
Okay, so I lived in St. John, New Brunswick as a kid for until Pee Wee, and Andrew and I were teammates. Andrew, myself, and another guy. I don't know if you ever played with Andy Bezo. Remember Bees?
Oh, yeah. He was with the Abbeys in '88. I used to watch him the year before. Oh, crazy. And then I played against when he's in Detroit with the Vipers. He was nuts. Yeah,
he had about 600 minutes one year in the I think something like that. But and again, not a big guy. Not a big guy. McKim was skilled, though. He was next level skilled. I think he was about 10 years ahead of where I think he could have had a real long career, just based on how the game maybe opened up a little bit as it got. But
like I always try to reflect on those little guys that could be playing in the gay now, and he'd be one of them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. He'd be right there. So then you go 05, 06, and this is pre-KHL, correct? When you went to Moscow?
Yeah, but the first 2 years was it was called the Super League.
Right. Yeah. So you end up over there, and that must have been, and there wasn't at that time a lot of, North American guys going to Russia.
Each team, I think we were allowed 3 imports.
Was it 3?
Imports, but the first. I went over there my first year I played with Moscow Spartak, but I went over signed with Moscow Dynamo.
Yeah.
And I get to the facility and they say, go on the ice. And I was saying, well, you have to pay me the money because I heard stories that they just wanted to try you out for free. So I said, no, you have to give me the money that we agreed to before I go on. And they wouldn't pay. And it was 3 or 4 days. And my buddy was playing goalie for Spartak. And he said, They'll take your contract. Come on down. So I said, you know what, I'm going to leave. So I went down. It wasn't that far away, like 20 miles to Spartak. So I went down there and ended up playing my first year there instead of Dynamo.
Yeah, and then you went back to Dynamo the next year. Ovechkin would have been gone because he would have got drafted in 06, or did you play against him when he was a kid?
No, he was gone. But Datsuk, because we skate so early over there, Datsuk was skating with them the first year I went over.
Oh wow!
And it was crazy. But I don't know if you ever seen a Russian team practice. They all look like superstars.
Yeah,
because they can carry the puck. They're highly skilled. When you put the referees in, then some of them disappear, but. When you watch them in practice, the skill level is so high with all the way through the team.
Yeah, no question. And you would look at a team in a skill session or practice and think, oh, these guys compete with anybody. But like you said, when the heat gets turned up a little bit and you're getting hit. And
Well, I remember doing it in practice over there. They were doing a 1-on-4, and they had to carry it all the way in. And I got the puck and curled into the center and got to center and just dumped it in. I said, I can't even beat one guy. I'm not beating 4.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I found over there the big difference, and I wasn't a real skilled guy, and I could skate okay, but I found it difficult defending because of that extra wide ice, right? When you kind of start to peel and you pick up your guy going back, and maybe if I wasn't a defenseman, but if I got turned around, I would never have enough, lateral mobility to get that guy. They'd be
it's a lot more angles, and it took time to realize that when they do get outside, they're not going to shoot, and 2, it's a long way to get back into the net. So you had to cheat and get to the net, so they couldn't get back. But so it's kind of like almost being patient, working hard, but being patient because you're leaving them out there.
Right. No, absolutely. And then the other part of it is all the east-west passes in the offensive zone. Everything's coming off a one-time shot. Everything back then, anyway, in the 90s.
And the Russians, they played the off wings for that reason. They all played, the righties played left wing and the lefties played right wing.
Yeah, interesting. So then you come back to the Toronto. Was this the first year of the Marlies at the Rico when you went?
No, I think it was the second or third. And I did come back. I did come back strategically. I asked to come back. My dad was sick, and I was able to go back and forth when I was there. So that was a strategic plan, but it was really fun. I really enjoyed Toronto.
Well, yeah, would have been cool because I mean, it's a great model when you can have your American League team in the same market, and not just for player movement, but just for culture, right? You got your American League coach maybe learning the systems that the NHL guy uses and some tactics, so it's more of a seamless transition. Were you ever called up and not play when you were with?
No, not in Toronto. I played exhibition games.
Yeah,
at the least, but no real games.
And a lot of guys I've talked to, have said, that exhibition game is pretty special too, right? When you're in an NHL rink and it's the Leafs and it's, playing Montreal or something like that, eh?
Yeah, like you're in awe. Every when you first get into the NHL, it's everything's in awe.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So then you went to Switzerland. That's interesting because that's a next level league too. That is very, very, very good hockey.
Yeah, like besides the KHL, it was probably the most skilled at that time, and it was really good hockey. And each country has a different style, and they had a different style. My coach there was Hans Ehlers.
Okay.
Ehlers' dad, he was the not Norwegian, but he was where are they from?
Swedes, I think.
No, he played in Sweden, but he's from
Denmark.
Yeah, he was the Danish Gretzky.
Yeah, Lars.
The dad. The dad. Nicky Ehlers' dad. He was the Danish Gretzky, I think.
Yeah.
But Nicky was there he was a kid, like 6, 7, 8 years old. Nicky Ehlers, when I was there in the hall, he could fly around then.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that league is still thriving. So then the KHL opens, and you go to where I don't even know where Khabarovsk Amur is. Where
30 kilometers from a China border. I don't know what town in China, but it's way over there.
Wow. Remote.
I remember flying from Toronto to Moscow. It was 9 hours, and from Moscow to my town was 8.5 hour flight.
Wow. So you guys would fly literally every game. You'd have to, right?
Well, our closest, they have another team, and it's called Vladivostok, which is on that same seaboard. But our closest team was a 5-hour flight.
Wow.
So I remember in Sports Illustrated, they did a thing on Vancouver about their flights.
Yeah. And
we were like 3-4 times what they were doing because our closest flight was 5 hours.
Crazy. Well, speaking of that, I have a little bit of I like to do math and different things. So this is nothing to do with your in season travel. So I did the math and I added up the kilometers that you would go at, from Charlottetown at the beginning of the season, and say you're flying to, Toronto or Kingston, and then at the end of the year coming home. So that's just that, right? Forget about being traded and all the road trips and the 5-hour flights and stuff like that. So you logged 194,600 kilometers just getting to and from your teams.
That's crazy.
Crazy. 200,000 kilometers just getting to work and getting home to work, right?
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and then for that, probably what would that double or triple or even quadruple if you throw in the miles that you kind of put on. So that's remarkable. Really, really cool. So yeah, I'm gonna get Nolan, the producers in the background here. I'm gonna get him to read our Don Cherry or play our Don Cherry video, or always brought to you by Don Cherry Sports Grill and Bjorn Hockey, Bjorn Sports of Scandinavia. Real big shout out to our sponsor, Don Cherry Sports Grill. Don Cherry's is obviously a synonymous brand with excellence in hockey and great food. Visit one of the Don Cherries that's out there and do yourself a favor. They're also in big time expansion mode right now, looking for new licensees across the country, looking for existing facilities, existing restaurants that are looking for a new fresh look. Hit them up at doncherrysportsgrill.com and check it out. Thanks again for all your support. I heard that they were talking to somebody on the island. I got my contact at Don Cherry, so they're in big expansion. But that's one of the, I don't know whether it was Charlottetown or Summerside, but I think somebody's looking at putting one there. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I think it would do well over there, huh? I made Rock'em Sock'em. Did you? Were you what one? I got into a hit. I think it was 14. Oh, I watched them all. I would have seen it. Yeah. Yeah, it was quick. Like you hit it. I have it on VHS somewhere. Oh, funny. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, cool. So, okay, so you're in, where were we? You're in Russia. Then you go to, this is interesting to me because I've spent some time over there with the Bjorn Sports guys. So they basically are rebranding the old Titan hockey stick. Same guy that kind of, invented it, made a recipe for a new one piece or composite, and they're out of Helsinki. So I've been involved with that. That's the Bjorn line, and so I've spent quite a bit of time in Helsinki and all over, like Tampere and some of those really cool spots. And are those sticks over here now? Yeah, I got them here. Yeah. I'm in the. We'll talk. Do they have 100 flex keel curve? No, nobody has 100 flex anything anymore. Right, guys are using 55 and 65. I know, it's crazy. I can't even use the sticks now. Yeah, I'm going to be on the island soon. I'll bring you one, and you try it out. We'll talk off the air. But anyway, so Joker at Helsinki, and what a passionate league that Liga is, right? So you would have played in Asat and Tampere and all those, because that was prior to them joining the KHL, right? And I got there halfway through the year in January. I don't think I seen light until I got home. Yeah, dark. Yeah. It was dark and gray. Like it was, but I loved it. I really enjoy the Finnish people. Yeah, they are. They're wonderful people. Actually, another connection here. So a Finn and the current general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Jarmo Kekalainen, he's coming on next week on this show. So we'll talk about his Finnish roots and kind of he blazed the path, right? Coming being a European general manager. That's but his scouting ability is apparently what got him there, right? He was real good bird dog for a couple teams, I think, over there. I think the Finnish and the Swedes had a couple of really good scouts wow. Detroit had a Swedish. Yeah, Detroit had a Swedish guy that was, getting them guys like
Zetterberg
and Lidstrom, in the 4th round and the 5th round and stuff like that, right? That's a pretty good eyes on you. So then you go back, you leave Finland, you go and you play a year and a half in Khabarovsk. Is that the same spot you were?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how that was the one down on the Chinese border, right?
Yeah, and you know what? For Russia, it was pretty interesting place, and they loved their hockey. We were a lower budget team, but we competed.
Morasti was telling me some stories about when he was
Yager was there those years.
Oh, was Yager there? Oh, wow. Who did he play for?
Those years. He was in Omsk.
Yeah.
And when you drove in, I think they gave him so much money, but they also, when you went into the rink, they had a gas station and it was 68. They gave him a gas station plus.
Were a lot of the teams, and Morasti told me some stories about how there was mysterious bags of money in your stall and all kinds of and some of the teams, certainly one of the teams that he played. Did you see any of that?
Yeah, well, before the KHL, the Super League, they paid us in cash.
Oh,
so
wow.
you would see the bag of cash around, and it was kind of almost scary at times. Like my apartment got broken into on payday because they thought I brought my money home, and because you had to get it from the rink to the bank, and in between all that, there was scary moments because I think it was an inside job that got my apartment, thinking that my money was there. So it was kind of scary.
That is scary, when you gotta deal with all that kind of stuff. Then you go back to Providence, 10-11. Did you left in the middle of the KHL season? Yeah, you only played 18 games.
Well, you know what? Alex McGinley was our GM. As soon as a new coach came in over there, because they would have their own agents, and then the agents would have their players, and they were safe because they all cheated with their money, and so anytime a new coach came in, the imports got fired.
Yeah,
and some of the Russians. So I got fired there. I ended up, financially, I got my money, but then I left in, I think it was October or November.
Yeah.
And my coach in Providence actually was Rob Murray. You crossed Rob Murray, the little fellow that we used to play against him. He was in Springfield. He was dirty tough. And the assistant coach was Bruce Cassidy, who's in Vegas now.
Doing okay, eh?
Yeah, he's doing all right. Boston got rid of him.
Yeah, exactly. How'd that work out for you? So were you over there? And I'm just trying to when the plane crashed, the locomotive was. It was the next year.
It was the next year, and I didn't go back, but it was the next year, and I knew most of the players that were on that plane, and it but it was so sad, but it was also. It should have happened before. They had no respect for safety and whatnot. I don't want to say it, but it should have happened before it did.
Really?
I remember waiting on the
why? It was poor safety.
Well, it was safety, but I remember waiting on the tarmac for 4 hours one day, and I had no English guys on my team, and the stewardess kind of got it to me that. We had to fly in. We were in a remote little town, and we had to fly in a new pilot because our pilot showed up drunk.
Oh my god!
So
that's comforting, right?
So you don't get caught. You don't get caught your first time. So I'm sure the pilot was drunk flying some of the planes.
Yeah, no, exactly. So then you did 2 stints in Valpisteria in the Italian A League. 11-12 and 13-14, and you were in England the season between there with Nottingham. What was the Italian league like?
It was getting better. They were starting to move up into the A level and the international level. So, and usually that's a correlation of the skill level in the country that at that time. And it was pretty good. It's funny because they called me up. And I hadn't played center in my life, and they called me up and said, "Do you play center?" I was like, "That's a weird question. I better say yes." So I said yes, and I played center the whole year. But I never I never had played before, so it was.
You've been around enough by then that you could probably figure out what a center iceman does, right?
Right. Yeah. No, and it was actually it was fun, but yeah, that I like the
Was it?
Italian League. It's northern Italy. We were in a ski resort, and the population grew by 4 or 5 in December, January with the ski people. But it was a beautiful part of the country.
And now, was there a guy around and another 6 degrees of separation? So Monty Emery was a goalie on the Marlboros in 87, 88, and there was another goalie. It was an Italian-Canadian kid by the name of Piero Greco. And I know Piero went to Italy and he played there forever, but he might have been done by then, I'm thinking.
I think he was goalie coach for the national team at that time.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah. I think he's still there. So he left, played for the Marlies, and then bombed over. I don't think he played any North American pro at all. He just went to Italy because he was able to have a passport and whatnot. I think his dad was.
But I think the Italian League back in earlier than me, but back in that day, they were making pretty good money. I think
they did.
It wasn't great. It wasn't great hockey, but they were making good money.
Yeah, absolutely they were. But I don't think the hockey was that good.
Yeah, that's exactly what I heard. Like they were scoring 80 goals, but they were making real good money. They couldn't leave. They couldn't go anywhere because they wouldn't make as much money.
Right, and you wouldn't put up the numbers, right? And I think a lot of guys got hurt by going there because nobody took those numbers seriously, right? You'd go and try to go to Sweden, and they go, "Oh, what did you do?" I had 80 goals in the Italian league, and they say, "Well, that's like 20 here." How much money do you want, kind of thing, right? What did you think of Nottingham?
I really enjoyed it. You know what? I went there. I was asked to go there for a year, 4 or 5 years. But just like you said there, I thought it was the end of the line. If you went there, you were done.
Yeah.
And it was one of my favorite places to play. And one because I was in Europe a lot of years before, and there wasn't a lot of English, and this was all English. So that might have been one of the things. But they lured me in I took my MBA there, and they paid for it and got me. And I didn't have an undergrad, and I did my MBA, and it was an opportunity that I'm like I need for after hockey.
Yeah.
But then, we had a great bunch of guys, the English guys, and I've been back to Nottingham since because I really enjoy it.
I have a good buddy here, and he's a lawyer here in Halifax, and he was over there when I was over there, and same thing. He got his law degree by playing hockey. Tim Cranston, do you ever come across Tim Cranston?
Yeah, I do remember the name. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's older than me. So Tim's will be 60 this year, I think. And but he did his whole. He's played for their national team too. He was there long enough that they he got to play in the World Championships and did quite well. So yeah, he speaks highly of it. His wife's from there, and he's got a young fellow that plays a couple of years older than mine. Okay, so Nottingham, then back to Italy, and then this is kind of you end up back in Nottingham a year later, but Brampton Beast. Was that the first year they came into the coast?
It was the second year, and I was done, or I thought I was done. I got a job in PEI, and at Christmas time, I called them and said, "You need a guy." Like I had to go back.
Well, you might as well do it if you can, right?
Yeah. No.
Was there a young fellow named Steve Ward there then?
No.
Defenseman? I know he played one season there. He was up in Alaska in the coast for a while, and then but he played must have been when you weren't there. I coached him when he was just a little guy. So then a few more years in Brampton, and then Jean-Pierre Marquis in the 2 games in the LNAH. How was that? Was that just as crazy as they make it out to be?
It was. Like I remember, I forget his name. He wanted it, but the heavyweight guys couldn't even skate. Like
no.
It was entertaining to watch because I remember one guy jumping over the bench. He held his stick like a shepherd. I don't even know if he knew how to hold it right. Yeah. But the crowd loved the fighting, and I only played 2 games. Benoit Graton, who I played against and battled against, was coaching me there, and we were down like 7-3 one game, and with 30 seconds left, they put their 4 tough guys out, and I was 42. Wow. And he threw me out there, and I'm like, you know what, I'll fight, but I'm not. You're not telling me when I have to. Like so, right. That ended that.
Well, that maybe was the event that you needed to say it's time, right? Sometimes it's So what are you doing now? What are you doing now?
You know what? I was in the financial industry, but when I started in Brampton, I started taking my residential appraisals,
Yeah.
and I opened my own company about a year ago. Yeah.
Nice.
In
On the island?
Yep, in PEI.
Yep.
So it's been pretty good. You know, I'm one man band right now, and I think it's might be time to hire something.
Awesome. Yeah, well, that's a lucrative industry when
And I'm around hockey still. You know, I played in the Allen Cup last year with Hamilton.
Oh, did
And
you?
that was we lost in the semis, and that was, and you know, I still play rec. My son's in Campbellton playing junior A, and I have another son who lives in Syracuse who plays midget hockey now. And
okay. And do you do any work? We were talking last night, just texting, and my son was in Toronto this weekend, and there was 4 or 5 kids from the island. Which ones of those did you know? Did you teach a couple of them, or?
Yeah, no, I know their dads.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, fair enough. Yeah. No, they won it. They won the King of Rings, and they came home today, flew home today, and then we're off to Brick Camp on Wednesday. So he played.
Where's that?
It's in Montreal. So he's trying out for the Montreal Junior Canadiens. So he played for the Team Quebec all spring this year, and then yeah. So it's every weekend he's being kind of pulled somewhere, but he was pretty proud of him. And then the kid, so they win the King of the Rings yesterday, and they got they actually give them rings in minor hockey tournaments now, which blows my mind, man. We were getting ribbons, right, and a pat on the back, maybe a patch that you sew on your hockey coat.
Now they're getting rings.
So he's getting rings, and then we get. He's texting me this morning before they fly, and he didn't even tell me that. He told my mother. He was texting my mother, and he said, "Yeah, I got player of the game in the final," because we're watching it on Live Bar, and you can barely see who's scoring the goals, right? You can see who's winning. Oh yeah, so yeah, he didn't even tell me.
Live Bar's great. It's not too big in the Maritimes yet, but I watch my kids on it all the time.
Oh, it's awesome, absolutely awesome. So. So you're gonna play another Allen Cup, or what do you think?
I don't know. Like they are putting a team together, and I still play quite a bit. I still love playing, and Mayor Machie in the senior league over there asked me to play, so I don't know if I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike in the winter, though, right?
But my son's in Campbellton, so I'll kind of make a trip out of it to
perfect. Yeah,
have some enjoyment.
Who's coaching Campbellton now?
His name is Heath Braden, tip of my tongue. Great guy. I forget.
Jerry was there. Fleming was there at one point, I think.
At one point, yeah. I don't know why this guy's name's skipping my mind, but good guy, good coach.
Good coach. Yeah. And how old is your son?
He's 19. The oldest one's 19.
19. Okay, so
then he'll have a 19-year, 20-year. He has a good year this year. He has. When I was over in Switzerland, I signed him up for minor hockey. He didn't step foot in Switzerland, but I signed him up, and he's got a Swiss pass, so he can go over as a non-import. So if he can put some numbers together, it might be something he can do. Not in the A League, but the B League maybe.
Well, and what they do over there, I knew a couple of guys, and they weren't even, they developed them. If you've got a Swiss passport, they'll take you and put you, like you said, on the B League, and really invest in you and get you to,
I remember playing in Kingston. The one kid was named, I think it was Wes Snell. He played 4 games with us, got caught, and when I went over to Switzerland, he was there for 12 years as a pretty wanted D. Every team wanted him.
Did he start in the Zurich with the Grasshoppers?
I think so, yeah.
Well, that's the exact guy I'm talking about. So Trevor Job and I went over there during the 94 lockout. Remember Trevor Job?
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard a couple of his stories, eh? Just a beauty. Anyway, so I had retired the year before. Jober was playing in the Coast, and he had like 90 goals in the Coast that year. And agents are looking for scrambling because Gilmore was over there, Phil Housley was over there, there's a whole bunch of guys all over Switzerland, and they ratify the NHL deal, and we're all getting calls, right? Hey, are you in shape? Yeah. What do you need? And then that young fellow was there. So would he be? I was 25 then. He was about 17, 18. So maybe your age, a little bit younger maybe than you.
And he was younger, a little bit younger than I was, and his dad played over there.
Yeah. And they had a house and everything for him. He didn't play. At that time, he was going to practice every day, and they were a B level team.
And I think he played till he was near 40. Made a lot of money, and he couldn't play in the L.
Funny because that's exactly when you said about your son. I was like, there was a guy, and that was him. Funny. Well, that's cool, man. Anything else you wanna talk about, or we?
I could talk all day. I love.
No, we're gonna get. You know what? I'm gonna talk to Nolan when we get off the air here. Don't go anywhere, and I'll tell you a feature that we got coming up. But thank you for this, and thanks to our sponsors, Bjorn Sports and Don Cherry Sports Grills, and really enjoyed getting to know you here. We'll be in the island here sooner than later, and we'll catch up certainly and have a beer, a game of golf or something. But
for sure,
sign off. Thanks again, David, and we'll
thank you.
Talk here off the air.